Hello once again, Monster Hobbies Model Car Garage Mechanics, and welcome back to another great unboxing video right here at the Monster Hobbies Model Car Garage. So here's one of those oldies but goodies that I've pulled out of my collection. This is a 1987 edition of the Hot Rod Magazine Revell 1957 Custom Chevy Bel Air. This is a really cool kit and follows many of those trends back in the 80s of removing all the chrome from the body except for a few accents and adding in modern tires for the times, in this case the tires from a Corvette. So really kind of a cool kit. This is one of those old ones, of course, that originally came out in 1963, and we'll take a look at those editions right now. Now I also have quite a few of these kits as people have been giving me them over the years, and this model also shares chassis with the Revell 1955 Chevy and 56 Chevy. They're all pretty much within the family. So I want to try to build our model, and with those there I have quite a few to draw on just in case something goes wrong. So without further ado, let's open up our 1987 edition and check that out on the bench. Now normally I'd say let's wind the clock all the way back to the 50s, but I think in this case let's wind that clock all the way back to 1987. And here we can see our special model series, the Hot Rod Classics. This is our Revell Hot Rod series kit of the custom 57 Chevy Hardtop. Special offer, magazine subscription offer inside. Now what makes this kit cool is that it was following the trends of the time where customizers would actually dechrome a lot of the car and then paint the chrome pieces in body color to give it a slick, more modern look. Also, they added in Corvette style wheels and many other different types that were available on the market just to get it all nice and cool for the times. Now as we look at magazines of the era, I have a street rodder here from I think 1991, but inside you can see this 46 Vet, and it's the same sort of theory again. They've dechromed the front end and along the sides, painted it black with the body color, and then added in Corvette wheels for the time period. Also unique to this era are the cool accessories like the newly designed mag wheels and different styles that they had after leaving the Keystones and the Kragers and many of the other American racing wheels of the past, and starting to get into these twisted spokes and multiple spokes and many other different cool designs, a lot of them based on Ferraris and other sports cars of the era. Also unique to these times were digital displays for your dashboard, which you could retrofit into your street rod or classic car. And here we have another example of the same motif of removing all the chrome and just having the chrome wheels and little accessories here and there. Another thing that marked this era in time for hot rodding and street rodding was the use of more modern engines under the hood, such as this 1988 Chevy 305 small block with the tune port injection. And here on the side of the box we can see that Revell has captured that spirit perfectly with the lowered down non-chrome 57 Chevy that they have here, and again with a little bit on the sides and around the windows, but the modern wheels specifically. And we also have some very modern slash retro style graphics on the side with the number 5 and then written 7 on this side On the opposite side, we have a written 5 with a number 7. So again, a lot of that cool nostalgic for the 90s style look, or actually the late 80s. On this side of the box, we also read that the instructions are in English, Spanish, and French. On the opposite side of the box, we see the wonderful 57 Chevy front end, and you can see that the original chrome emblem has been removed and replaced with a graphic design. And here we have the stock Corvette with the fuel injection on it, but they have painted it a new color, which is a teal or turquoise. And if I just slide the box over, you can read a bunch of the features on here. High technical graphics, opening doors, hood and trunk, BBS modular wheels, detailed interior, tinted windows, Chevy 283 V8 engine with speed equipment, detailed chassis with raised or stock suspension, bonus hot rod sticker included, molded in charcoal. Additional materials. To assemble and paint this model kit to match pictures on package, you will need plastic model cement and the following colors: turquoise, steel, light yellow, purple, silver, clear turquoise, black, clear, and red. Now I just want to wind the clock back a bit and show you the sides of the box from the 1963 edition, because it gets into a little more detail about what's going on, and it also tells you there that this kit has roll-down side windows, which is really a unique feature. Now, whenever I build a model kit, I like to sometimes go back on the original model kit boxes and whatnot, and look over old instructions online and those sort of things, and see where this kit started from and how it evolved into the kit I'm currently building. So here's the side of the box, a printout of it from the 1963 edition, and it says we've got a gleaming with chrome Chevy 283 ramjet fuel injection engine, and here you can see way back in the day they even had the 6 carburetors. One thing that I've noticed with this kit is that the original actually had the fuel lines going into the carburetors, but later that was dropped. Maybe it was too complicated to try to attach. And then here we have the intake manifold for the blower, but it doesn't show the blower up here, which is rather interesting. Check out these features: 1/25th scale, one-piece body, stock, custom or competition, opening doors, opening trunk with trunk interior, turnable front wheels with metal axles, highly detailed ramjet fuel injection V8 engine with dual exhaust, and many competition extras. Now take a look at this. We've got 3 features right here, and they all deal with tires and rims. So we have US Royal Masters, which were the stock tires, which would be really cool to see those. Usually it's Goodyear, Firestone, whatever. We have M&H Racemaster slicks for the dragster, and then American Racing Equipment mag wheels, chrome reverse rims, stick shift transmission, metal axles. See, in later kits they're all plastic now. Highly detailed chrome parts, competition decal with official NHRA class designations. Well, that's for the first run. And then authentic custom and competition parts such as gold seal traction masters. Now those would be the bars that go on the back of the springs in order to lock down the rear springs and prevent, torque roll and that sort of thing. We have scavenger exhaust pipes, which would be straight exhaust pipes going out to the very back of the car from the headers. Cal Custom tubular grill, so that's the grill insert, and that part has remained. Headman headers as well, which have also remained. Edelbrock Moon and other popular speed equipment. Now, there is a competition Moon gas tank that you glue in front where the radiator is, actually in front of the radiator. So that would be there. And then we've got a sun tachometer to round it all out, which is a really cool. Now check out the features on the other side of the box. Now before I lift the lid on this box, I just want to let you know that I've had this model for a very long time, and I did try to build it at one point, but this is a very complicated model because the front wheels steer, the doors open, the trunk opens, the hood opens, and those side windows actually fold up and down inside the body. And it is pretty complex. And the other problem it has is this is a very old mold, going back to 1963, as I said before, and it has a lot of issues such as high amounts of flash and a lot of open areas. There's a lot of mold marks pretty much everywhere on this kit. So these are some of the factors that prevented me from finishing it, but I still want to show you what's inside. So let's take the lid off and examine this wonderful model. Here we have the instructions, and I bought this at Woolco in the Lougheed Mall in British Columbia for $9.47 on December 11th, 1993. So like I said, it's been a long time. So we'll take a look at these instructions next. But here we have our chrome parts tree, which is really cool. We also have our glass. There's the windows that fold down. You can see this long stem here, and that will hook onto a pin inside the interior and allow this to swing up and down that way. Now here's the body and the undercarriage. Now normally on the undercarriage there would be a mold mark saying Revell, and I've sanded that all out. I've also added in some putty into the corners. And here we have the body after I've removed all the flash from it. You can see it's pretty much ready for some paint. Alright, we've got separate seats in the back. We have the wonderful two-piece tires, which I have to glue together with some crazy glue or something. And I have cut down the parts trees, so here we can see them all. Again, a lot of neat stuff. We'll take a look at this more in depth in a little bit. We also have a decal sheet over here in the corners, which we'll see after. And again, a lot of cool stuff. A lot of parts on the parts tree. The engine has many bits and a lot of cool features to it too, like the exposed crankshaft in here, as well as the valves up above, and the rocker arms, and cylinder combustion heads. And oh, right here you can even see the cylinders. They're in different levels inside the engine block. So if you ever wanted to build this on the bench all pulled apart, this is a model to do it with, because the detail is excellent in it, even though it has some parts fit issues and alignment bits that are odd. But overall, I mean, for the detail and the vintage of this kit, it is really good. Revell in the early 60s were looking at true scale models, making all the components in actual 1/25th scale as opposed to fattening them up a little bit here and there to make them easier to assemble. So a lot of interesting history with this kit. Again, a lot of neat pieces, and pieces that had sink marks that needed to be filled and sanded, which never happened. We also have all the hinges and hardware in there, and the door panels are actually double-sided. So here we have a tuck and roll pleated type door panel, which is for the custom, and then we have the factory stock with the fabric in there. And there it is up the opposite side. It's only the front doors that are reversible, the backs are not. But overall, I mean, there's a lot of cool bits to this, and I have seen some people build this online, and this one turns out not too bad. Atlantis is currently re-released this kit, so again, you can get a new version of it if you want. Here we have the instruction sheet for our 57 Chevy Hardtop, the Hot Rod series, and we've got a bit of a write-up in here, as well as the symbols we will see in order to construct our model. And down here is the paint call-out chart, and it goes from A to H, so we've got 8 different paint colors. But there is a J in here that often gets cited, and I'm not really sure what the J stands for because it's not on the paint chart, but I just take it as super detail painting because it's basically referring to the grille, so that would be like a black wash in there, and some of the emblems, so that would be multiple colors like Chevy blue and red, white, and blue in the emblem and that sort of thing. So that would be the J part of it. As we open the instructions, we get to see the assembly of our engine on this page to start it all off. So right here in step 1, we have our oil pan, the bottom of the engine with the crankshaft right inside, and then we have our cylinder chambers being glued up on the top. Now as we get to step 2, we have our cylinder heads being glued onto the engine block, and our choice of either custom valve covers or stock Chevrolet ones. Getting into step 3, we have our right and left hand side of our transmission going to the bell housing, and then our starter motor being glued on, and the whole assembly being glued to the back of the engine. Now in step 4, we have our choice of one of 3 engines, which we can now decide on which one we want to build. So first off, we have the Chevy 283 ramjet fuel injection engine, and then for B, we have the same engine, but now with tri-carbs on the top. And C is our full race engine with these wonderful Headman headers on here, and a bunch of Edelbrock Moon and other popular speed equipment. So again, a really cool engine. So here we have A and B, so that would be these two. And the universal assemblies for A and B are the stock valve covers, our timing chain cover. We also have our pulleys and the generator up here, or maybe an alternator in this case, and our fan being glued onto the end. Now over in step 6, we have the full Chevy 283 ramjet fuel injection motor being glued together. We've got our throttle body, plenum chamber, throttle body front, and then we have the metering valve, oil cap, manifold base, and the distributor all in here, which will go onto the top of the engine. Over here, we have our oil cap, we have our log manifold, we've got our distributor in the back, and the 6 carburetors, and that would go onto engine B. And then down here we get into engine C with those wonderful Headman headers right there. And then our front timing chain cover, we've got a magneto in here, and then we've got our belt drives and pulleys. Here we have our blower being glued together, right and left hand side of the blower itself. And then here we have the fuel injector, right and left hand side, and then the scoop being glued onto the top. And then in panel 10, sorry, a little bit of a head slip, we've got the front and back of our blower covers, and then down here we've got our fuel pump, and there's the manifold for the blower, and that drops onto the top of the engine block. Now panel 11, we flip to the chassis, and we have the assembly of our mufflers and tailpipes being glued into place, and these go down really well, and from what I've seen, the actual pipes coming off the manifold really hook up well onto these. Now panel 12 shows the chassis from panel 11, and here we glue the gas tank down into place. And now for panel 13, again we have an option of car A, B, C, or D. So car A is sitting at the factory stock ride height, while car B is lowered on all 4 corners. Car C is lowered in the front but has the back jacked upward for that nice rake. And then in D we have our gasser, so the back is up and the front is up to clear those Headman headers and all that fun stuff. So we just need to look for A, B, C, or D to figure out which way we want to build this. So starting in panel 14, they show A, which is the stock ride height. And it is a little bit tricky to see in here, but we have the lower A, or sorry, I guess if you turn this around, because we're looking from the bottom up, we have our upper A arms here. We've got springs going in, and then we have our kingpins in here. And there's these little extender pins which glue onto the kingpins in certain ways. So if you're going stock, the pins come from the top down, and if you're building the lowrider, they go from the bottom up. So that gives you the different heights from before. And then we've got our lower A arms up here. So all this sandwiches together up on those frame horns. So that gives us our Poseable front end, and it also says do not glue these so that the kingpins can rotate in there. And then here we have the tie rod, and it also has little stops. So you want to glue inside, or maybe on the top of the pin here very carefully with your tester's glue and a toothpick. But first you slide down the tie rod, of course, and then you tap just a little tiny bit of glue on the top. Don't use liquid because that'll go down and seal this, unless you want your wheels locked in position. But if you want them poseable, be very careful when you're assembling this with the glue so it doesn't squish in and glue down your tie rod. So now we're looking over here, and this is for B and C, so the lowered front end. And like I was saying, you just reverse the kingpins in here with that extender block up there. So it pushes the kingpin actually up into the top. And here you're keeping it away from the top, basically. So that's how they're lowering it in this situation. So 16 basically assembles in the same way as 14, except the kingpins are reversed. And then here we have the tie rod again going in. This time it's lower than the stock version just because the front end is dropped. Now we're getting into D, and this is the gasser, so jacking up the front. So here we have a tubular cross member which glues into that opening. And then we have the fixed front axle with the gigantic springs up there and a different tie rod, and that's our racing tie rod, which glues in under here on those two little pins. And then down here we have shock absorbers going into that front end, which gives it that raised appearance and some shocks up front. And then here we have our differential in the back. So this is for car A, C, and D. So A, stock height, C with the back end at stock height, and D for our gasser, which would still have the back end at the stock height. What we have here is two-piece differential, and we've got our brake backing plates right here, and then the two springs which will glue into place. And then for 22, this is B, so the lowered car. And the way that they used to lower cars back in the day was to put a block between the spring shackles and the differentials, and that's exactly what we see here. So this component goes together in the same way as this here, but we're just putting spacers in between the springs. Continuing on, we have panel 23, and here we have the jacked up rear end for car C. And that would be jacked up by adding in these shackles just underneath the back of the rear springs, which would raise the whole rear end up by basically dropping the axle downward. So that's how it goes for the jacked up car. And then in 24, we have the rear axle for the lowrider, as well as the gasser and the factory stock car. And here you can see the backs of the springs mounting right onto the back of the chassis without being raised. And then you would add in your shock absorbers in here as well. Now it is kind of unfortunate that there are not extended shock absorbers for the shackled end, but it's just the way it is. Now in panel 26 we have our drive shaft going into the back of our differential, and there even is drive shaft guards, which is really nice, so that if something happens underneath here, your drive shaft won't fall on the ground and act like a javelin or something like that as you're driving down the road. So that's very nice. Now here, I don't quite understand why they always show so many pictures of tires going together in a Revell kit. But basically, I'll just kind of speed this up a little bit. So for panel 27 and 28 and 33 and 34, we have the assembly of our tires. So that's basically an outer rim, the tire outer, the tire back, and then the mag wheel actually going in. So the mag wheel has this sunken in appearance with the rim being out there. And we've got our part numbers, of course, so we've got a left and a right. And these, it doesn't really say which is front or back. Same with down here. But right here, we have the distinction because we have our spindle, and these are the front backing plates. So you put the backing plate in behind the wheel, and then you put this little pin into here and here. And you want to be careful that your wheel will be able to rotate around. So basically you want to put a little tiny bit of glue right in here. Again, don't use liquid glue, but the solid glue, put it in with a toothpick, put this in place, and push the pin in there. And that should glue the wheel to the pin and hopefully not the backing plate to everything. So yeah, be careful with that. So here we have our A and B wheels, and that is going in. So the, A and B, so right and left hand side. Okay, so I get it. So these wheels are the front wheels, and you're assembling them there, and there's the completed wheels. And then we have A, which is this one, going here, and B there. And these are directional wheels, so the blades are curving this way. So when the car rolls forward, the blades are coming in and chopping like as if it was a lawnmower or a blade for your Cuisinart or something like that. So they're not rolling, this way as you're going forward with the curve coming in that way. They're actually coming with the sickle sort of side of it. Now, here's the assembly for the rear wheels, which go together like the front wheels, as I was saying before. So let's carry on in step 35 and see what's going on. Now here in step 35, we have A and B again for the directionals, and we have our wheel going in through here. Now this is a plastic axle, and again it's saying do not glue it. That's just in case you glue this whole thing solid by mistake, but you will still have to glue the axles into the wheel backs. So you do have to put a little bit of glue, but carefully put them into the back of the wheel, just on those backing plates and the little hole there, and you should be okay. And here we have our engine being installed into the chassis in step 37. Step 38 is now connecting our exhaust pipes to the mufflers, and apparently this goes together really well according to other people that have built this online. Next up we have our firewall, and we've got our choice of either the factory foot pedal or the custom racing gas pedal in there. And then here we have the opposite side of our firewall, and what we have is the windshield wiper motor being glued into place. We also have in behind our stick shift being glued onto the floor plate, which will glue into the interior. Speaking of that interior, here we have the rear seat back and the custom spare tire cover, which glues over top of a hole in the back of the trunk, which we'll take a look at when we actually get to building, or looking at the plastic parts even. And then we have our side panels being glued into place. In here it shows to paint your color up in here, which happens to be turquoise. And then we've got our rear seat being glued into place, and again we've got turquoise in here. So when I build this, I want to actually build it like it is on the box, just to bring back 1987 for me, which is kind of cool. Here we've got our front seat, which also has a seat back which glues into place. And then here in 45 it's showing the windows being glued in, and here's where the J is. So we've got vents on the side of the car as well as the cross flags emblem. So this on the seat is a solid color, A, but J, if you were to paint the checkered flags, you'd have the little white, black and white in there and all sorts of colors. And here on the vents, they'd be black with a chrome outline. So I think J is referring to multiple paint colors as opposed to a single color. And then here we have the steering wheel choice. And somewhere I read that this little steering wheel is an Anson steering wheel for competition. There we've got our steering column. We also have the tachometer being glued in place, the sun tachometer from days gone by. There's our dashboard, and then we have our floor pedals here. Here in panel 47, we see the rear view mirror being glued to the headliner up in here, followed by the dashboard, completed dashboard. And these somehow kind of trap the window in place, because apparently the window is molded right to the very edge. So it's one of those deals where there isn't a little bit of extra plastic over to just secure it into the body or something like that. This is actually directly to the window frame, and if you're not careful, you can actually pop the glass out as you're trying to put it in, or pop it out of place at any rate. So be very careful with that. Here's these side doors, and we can see this hinge being glued in place as well as our little side glass in the no draft window. And then you would glue in your panels. And like I was showing before, you have your choice of the stock panel or flip it over and you've got your padded panel. Tuck and roll, baby. And then down here we've got the retainer for our hinge, which glues into place. Now this is pretty crucial here that you glue the retainer and the door in before you try any of the steps down below, because apparently these are all designed to lock in with each other and they're all spaced accordingly. And if you have one out of sequence, for example, if you glue this in the body first, then try to get your hinge in, you might not be able to. So that's the warning I've learned from other people building this. So these two panels are basically this panel again, but on the opposite side. And there's your retainer again. Okay, so now we get into the left air duct and the left fender well, and then that gets pushed up in here, and there's a notch and a little groove, and those would lock in. And remember, this back piece is going to be butted up against one of these hinge retainers. And then again, it's Revell has redundant pictures in here. They could have done this as, you know, one universal picture. At any rate, there it is again for the right side and pop it in place. Okay, so now we have our radiator getting glued in here and the radiator horns as well in panel 58. Panel 59 is showing our heater being installed as well as the battery. And the battery is pretty cool because it actually has the battery holder molded onto the side of the battery. Now in step 60, we've got our headlight bezels with the headlights going in place. Now, 61 is referring to the hood, and if you've built this thing for drag racing with a giant blower, you're going to have to cut out this little rectangle underneath the hood, and it's sunken in there anyway. So you would cut that out and pop that out, and now your blower can go through the center of that little removed rectangle. And then down here we have the stock version, so here we have the Chevy emblem being glued in place, and they do say it's optional, because remember there's a decal that can go there instead, which I think I'll use. And then we have the little emblems up here, which glue in right there. Okay, so here's the hood hinge, and there's two little dots on the bottom of the hood, and they go in there and there. And then you got the retainer, so all that goes together, so your hood will open. And then here we've got that chrome strip that goes on the bottom of the hood, which is pretty nice. Yeah, and there you can see the little pins, which are supposed to go into the holes. So they're saying to glue the hinge in first, then glue the hood to the hinge. Now down here we have the fender top trims and the back trim, which goes up on the fins. Then this is our trunk. So we've got the trunk emblem and we've got a license plate which glues on. Now you could omit these two components like it shows on the box and just put that decal across the back and call it a day. Here we have the trunk hinge again, which glues in on this little tab in the back. And here we see the trunk being glued into the hinge itself. And now we get into the side windows. Now, in the original instructions from 63, they say that these windows actually roll back into the body, and you can bring them back up, you know, so it's like rolling up and down these side windows. Now, as you can see, we've got the glass here, which is shaped, you know, like the rear of the Chevy, and it's got this long arm, and at the bottom is a hole. And that hole goes onto this pin on the backs of those side panels. So don't glue this in solid like I've seen some people do in the videos. Well, I mean, you can if you want the side windows to be up permanently. But if you want to use that feature where they flip down into the body, just keep all this clear. And there are some mold marks on the windows, so we'll sand those nice and flat on these arms so that the whole mechanism goes up and down nice and easy. Now, just to show that again on those side windows, this is the instruction sheet from 1963, and I find it kind of funny because look at the Chevy body itself. It's like not even drawn properly. Look at the windshield goes all the way around, and then this thing looks like it's squished. But at any rate, it's very boxy too. At any rate, here it shows that rear side window right here, and it says caution, do not cement right there. And that goes onto that pin again. So I'm really psyched to try to get this window to drop down, because I wonder where it stops. Like, maybe this little back portion clicks on the top of that fender well. So that, I mean, because you still got to be able to get the bit of the glass here that's going to be up over the Darren dip and bring it back. Or otherwise, I don't know, turn the car like this or something and listen for the windows to go pop, pop as they come back up from gravity. But at any rate, make sure you don't cement those. Now in panel 70, it shows the undercarriage, the chassis, being popped into place on the body. So you would spring this open and then pop it down. 71, it actually shows like a distance shot of the same thing, with the sides of the body being sprung open a little bit, dropped onto the chassis, and then let it go. Snap, 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 it all snaps into place. Okay, so now we're getting into the custom and the competition bits. So here is that Moon gas cap, gas tank. There's a cap for it, and the upper and lower. Of course, it's optional, and it would go right here in that space between the front bumper and the radiator. And then over here, you've got your choice of that wonderful tube grill or the stock Chevy grill. And then here we've got our grill surround and an optional license plate that you can glue into place. Down here, we see the rear bumper being glued in place. And it says to paint in here, but at one point there's actually some clear lenses that go in place. And then here at the very bottom is our decal location. So we'll take a look at the decals in a little bit, but this is how it all goes together. Now for this unboxing, I want to do something a little bit unique. I want to start to do a little comparison right here on some of these Revell Chevy kits, because I've got so many that people gave me, because a lot of people have given up on this model over time, and somehow I ended up with a whole bunch. Not that I asked for it, but I've got them. So this is how the body comes out of the box fresh. Like I was showing before, there is a lot of flash in here, and there's a lot of support pieces like this bar that says remove, which goes in here, and some inaccuracies. Like one thing I've noticed, there's no actual cowl vent detail in here. That's smooth. And the real Chevy should have something, I believe, if I remember correctly. Maybe I'm having one of those Mandela effects. But at any rate, it's not a bad casting for what they were doing back then. The detail in here is very nice. It's got the Chevy Bel Air script written in there, as well as the fuel-injected cross ram right there. And those little vents, proportionately, it's not too bad. There are a few faults with it. I find that the front end looks like, when you get the chrome bumper on there, it looks like it's sticking out a lot, almost like a tunnel. But maybe that's just me. Underneath you get a wonderful headliner with the dome light in the right place. But there you can see all those mold marks everywhere. This kit is plagued with them. Okay, now getting into comparison, this is the body before sanding it out. This is the body after you remove everything from it and sand out the flash and mold lines. There's a wicked one that runs on the top of the fender. It's almost as if the front of the fenders are stepped down a little bit. But overall, I mean, you can correct this out with some sandpaper. Here's an earlier edition molded in red. I do believe this is from 1978. But as you can see, it's the same kit again. Turning it upside down, I forgot to mention there's those little intakes which are right behind the headlights for those vents which go into the engine. But again, not too bad. I do have a few that I can practice with and try to get them to fit together before actually building this real build. And now this is the 57 Chevy version of the same kit, and I do have the 56 as well, which I've reviewed earlier on this channel. Now for this Bel Air, I think there has been some side trim removed. Not exactly sure, but you can see that it's got the same opening doors, trunk and hood area. Well, a little bit different because it's 55 Chevy. And again, plagued with mold marks. And a different headliner up underneath. But this does fit that same style of chassis. It's basically the brother car to the 57, just like the real thing. But that's your body comparisons. I've also noticed another thing. Depending on which version of this kit you have, the actual parts trees are different. Here we can see the chassis on this parts tree with suspension components, valve covers, drive shaft, steering wheel, and the hinges for the doors, as well as retainers, and your lower A arms, and your backing plates, fan, the transmission, and the rising blocks, as well as some shock absorbers. But then you get this one, and as you can see, we've got the radiator molded on this parts tree, as well as one of the inner fender aprons. And you would assume that this would be the same parts tree, but it's not. So I was going to try to do a sneaky, put the different parts in the box and bring them out, because I was working on the kit before. But it's not going to work because there's so many different parts trees, it's hard to really get which one was which and, throw it together. Unless this is for the 55. No, it doesn't. No, because that's going up in here. So again, like I say, many different versions, many different parts trees. So what I'll do is I'll show the parts that I'm going to use right out of the box. And here we have our chassis, and I've added in some putty because there were some pretty fierce looking sink marks in here. I also removed the Revell script from underneath and just sandpapered the bottom of the frame rails in order to smooth it all out and make it look nice. So we're pretty much there, but flipping it over is really cool. We have the floor panel molded in place. We've got these locks for our seats to fit in, as well as the side panels. And we have this wonderful detail in the back for the carpet. Let me just bring it up here. There you can see it. It's not a carpet, it's rubber floor mats. Why can't I English anymore? Okay, there's the opening for the spare tire. And if you have a narrow enough tire in your collection, you could actually put one in here. Just sort of clean it up to get rid of these little pegs here for the cover. But overall, I mean, you could do it. I don't think the factory stock version had a cover, but the custom one would, of course, right? Somebody would make one up. The floor actually has a carpet detail. And the sink marks in here are actually under the seats. So when you get that together, it would look quite nice, and you wouldn't even see the holes. Here we have the door outers, as well as the hood and the trunk lid. We also have the inner rear panel. We've got our door panels. Now I've placed them this way so that we can see that this one has the factory fabric upholstery, whereas this one has the tuck and roll custom upholstery. Here is the front seat glued together with the seat back on it. And there is a little bit of an issue with the way I glued this together. As you can see, the seat actually dips in on the seat back. And it should be tight up against the back here, but it is a little bit lower. That might have been me. I'm not sure. I've got a firewall here. You can see the wonderful wires that are coming off it on this side. And as I turn it over, you can see the carpet on the back and the hole for the gas pedal to go in. Very nice component. Here we've got the back of the trunk. This is that little wall in behind. Smooth on this side, but on this side there's some big mold marks as well as a number, 128. So you want to try to sand those off in order to make it flat on both sides. We've also got our dashboard down here, which is quite a wonderful piece. You can see all the gauges in there, as well as the radio and the Bel Air, the little clock. Again, quite neat. A little pad here for the pedals to glue on. But there was a sink mark in here that you noticed when you open the doors, so I filled that in with a bit of putty and just have to sand it. Here I've got the rear seat, and again you can see how nice that is. No seat belts back there, but I think the seat belts might have been an option in 57, not too sure. Here I've got the other panel, And there was a sink mark in there, so there's some putty just to fill it. Still have to sand that out. And if I turn it over, you can see the long pin that the glass is supposed to go onto. So make sure you keep that nice and clean. Here I have a few parts trees as well as some loose components. So here we've got the rims, the outers. We've got our steering wheel, and we've got riser blocks and the kingpins and springs. And we have our tie rod here. This is for the dragster front end. This is the tie rod for the factory stock. Also got our rear springs and some of the hinges and components and many other little goodies in there. Here we've got our wheel backs and the plastic axle, which you might want to replace with a metal wire. We've also got our exhaust pipes. We've got the drag front axle with the springs, radiator, and the inner fender wells. We've got our tubular cross member for drag racing and the little Anson steering wheel. And here's our upper and lower A-arms for the stock version. And I just realized something with the Chevy that I just remembered with the body. There is not a cowl vent here. Chevrolet had actually lowered the front of the car from the 55 and 56s, and that's what those tubes are that go on top of the fender wells. Those are the fresh air intakes instead of the cowl up here, and they went actually through the front headlights. There's a little grill that goes around inside the headlight with the headlight in the center, and that brings in fresh air from the very front of the car into the passenger compartment. Forgot all about that, guys. I actually watched a video on the Tri-Chevys, and that slipped my mind. But at any rate, the issue I have with these parts is that there's a mold mark on every single one in here. So you take your time and clean these up as best you can, because those mold marks will interfere with part assemblies. Like especially here you got the hood hinge, you got a mold mark there. Not so bad on this side, but this one, you're gluing this flat to the body on the inside, and there's a mold mark and a mold mark with flash sticking up. And same on the tops of the springs and everywhere. So get rid of those mold marks as best you can. Detail is pretty nice on here for the vintage of the kit. But like I say, these sort of things will hold you up in your models. So get out that old number 16 hobby blade, Mr. James, and get rid of these things and make them all nice and smooth. So yeah, there you go. Like I say, everything should fit together nicely. Oh, there is a big bit of flash right where the spring is going to mount right there, so you want to get rid of that. But overall, there's your parts, and have fun. And here we have our final black plastic parts tree, and this is where all the goodies are for the car, like our multi-piece engine, our two-piece rear axle, the mufflers, those intakes. We've got our fuel tank right here, as well as the moon fuel tank over here, the cover for the spare tire, the battery, the blower motor, all these wonderful manifolds, engine components, you name it, it's on here. There's that crankshaft. So I will bring this one up to the camera so we can really get a good view of this. The tank is loose. Okay, take a look at all that detail on there. Really well done. Consider this is 1963. And they have everything. See, they've even got the little shelf here molded on the side of the battery where my finger is pointing. And that is how it would mount in the real car. We got a custom spare tire cover with a little tuck and roll going on at the bottom edges. We've got the Chevy 283 exhausts on there. Again, really cool. Look at that engine. Now, here's the top of the rockers. You can see them all in there. Turn that over. There's the combustion chambers. Really cool. Look at the crankshaft in there. So again, if you want to build this in some, not fully assembled, so you can see the oil pan, take the oil pan off so you can see the crankshaft is what I'm trying to say, but I'm not Englishing right now. Look at these cylinder heads. You've actually got one at the top dead center and then one at the bottom down there, just like the real thing. Even the intake manifold, you've got braces underneath. So, excellent stuff. The only downside, like I was saying, is there's so many mold marks where this is going to glue together. So you really have to file all this flat, or, you know, round it depending on where you are. This is another issue that was pointed out. That's your gear stick right there. And see how thick the plastic runners are where it attaches? So be careful when you take this off that you don't break it. Somebody out there suggested using a pin, sewing pin with a round ball on the top. It's a good option. There you got your pedal. This should be chrome, but it's not. At any rate, a lot of cool stuff and a lot of high detail went into this one parts tree alone. So even if you want to just get this kit and build the engine, this makes it worth it. Here we have the chrome parts tree that comes in this kit. And I left some space here because I actually have one of the older versions from 1978, and the bumper came off, so here we go right there. Now, you can see the comparison in here and how it evolved into the 80s. So here we have the tricarbs, which is the same. This is the chrome piece that goes on the front of the hood. And then here we have our stock grille, and then the tubular grill underneath. So this part of the triangle is still the same. The square is so that Revell could hang it and then dip it in the electroplating for chroming it. So just something in-house for them. Now here you can see that the wheels got blocked off, but we have the original stock hubcaps here, and then we have these nice chrome knockoffs. Now I do believe this old part tree here is the one that's currently in the Atlantis kit. Correct me if I'm wrong for you guys that have that kit. So this is what you get in the Atlantis kit. We also have, I do believe that's a booster or heater part or something. At any rate, these are the tops of the fins and the back of the fins. So that's the same. We've got our rear bumpers and our headlights. And there is that mesh in there. That's for the fresh air to come in. Came in there, there, and up along the top. Now, getting in here, we've got the chrome knockoffs right in there, which we still have here. So that's a carryover from the earlier parts tree. We've got the wonderful Chevrolet valve covers in chrome, and our grille itself, the opening. And these don't have the rubber Dagmars in there. They just have the sort of the vent that it was, or the little crosshairs. So this is sort of a unique front end. There we've got the plenum for our fuel injection, as well as the canister. And these are license plates in here. So, oh, there's our rear view mirror as well. So basically the only thing that changed between these two editions is the wheels. And here we have our Corvette wheels as well. So again, not much change, but just a few significant areas. Now, what I'll do is I'll bring up this one into the camera so we can just check it out. So there you've got those Corvette style wheels, the BBM I think they're called. The grille you can see in behind, it's open there. This one is not, of course, being a mesh. Carburetors are really tiny, so you want to watch out for those. And there you can see the detail for the vent up in those headlights. Chevrolet emblems are nice. Turning it over, looking for mold marks. Not too bad, actually. The chrome is probably the best. Couple here and here on the grille and some numbers, so sand all that smooth. Get a nice tight fit into the body. But overall, it looks really good. Let's just take a look at the earlier edition. There we've got the factory hubcaps, which look accurate, and then those cool looking steel wheels. Hopefully I've got enough chrome pieces to build some of those kits that were in that Eggo waffle box. But let's hope we can get something together. Here we've got our clear plastic components. We've got our rear window, our windshield, as well as the side windows, and the no drafts and our headlights. And always remember that that pattern goes north, south, east, and west. A very subtle pattern on there, and a lot of flash. so make sure you clean those up nice. Unfortunately, this was not in a bag, so I've got some little scratches and whatnot on the windows, but a bit of automotive polish on a rag can take care of those. But first I'm going to use a bit of soap and water in there just in case it's actually dirt and not a big scratch. Here we have the old Revell two-piece tires, and these were always the bane of model builders. The nice single solid tires are a lot more desirable, and luckily if you do get the new Atlantis version of the kit, they have replaced these with solid tires. But look at all the webbing you have to cut out of the middle and then cut them off this main webbing, cut any bridges off, and then there is flash up on the sidewalls, which needs to be removed. Once that's all done, I have seen people crazy glue these together, and apparently that works really well. You can crazy glue them and then spin the tread in order to give this a worn look, as well as get rid of that center line, the center seam, which is going to come up. Now, how do these go together? I think they go this way. Seems to be working right. Yeah. So basically it's, yeah, there we go. There is a little tab that sticks out on one of them and a little valley on the other, and those have to go together just like that. These are Goodyear, what are they? Goodyear custom wide tread tires. So obviously not a factory stock tire, but still narrow like one. So overall, if you can get around the two-piece tire effect, these should be nice on your finished model. Here we have our decal sheet with some pretty wild graphics for 1986. 1986 had a lot of pastel colors going on and whatnot, but there you have 5 as a written word with 7, and on the opposite side you have 5 as a number with 7 as a written word. You can see the nice blue and purple and yellow, all in pastel colors. The crack is where the door is, and then you've got your choice of either the Chevy bow tie or 283 cubic inch in that same location. And then down here we have these Art Deco letters that say Bel Air, and the official Hot Rod decals, which you can put on the side windows or somewhere on the sides of the car, or one in the front of the car and one in the back. Now some of these kits actually had a full-size Hot Rod sticker that came in them, but back in the day I stuck that sticker on a bunch of different things, so I have none left. But overall, very simplistic decal sheet, but very nice. The only thing missing with this is license plates. Now there are some plastic ones that come on the chrome parts tree, but they're smooth. And it's the location for a license plate decal to be attached to, but as you can see here, there is none. So if you have any in your spare box or want to reduce one from the internet and print it off, that's the way to go. Well, I hope you enjoyed this unboxing of our Revell Hot Rod Edition 1957-ish Chevrolet Custom Hardtop. Now, one of these days I'm going to build this model as well as some of those other ones from that Ego box that I have. And when I do that, I'm going to place that video right here. So you can click on it and see how to build this thing and follow along with me. In the meantime, there'll be some other video there, an unboxing or something like that. And down in this corner, if you want to check out our website, you can do that by clicking the icon that's going to pop up. And if you want to subscribe to our channel, click this one over here. Also consider being a member, and that's a lot of fun and can really help support this channel by helping us get more models or whatever else we can do for you. So until next time, everybody, happy model building, and we'll see you in the next video.